It's the 1972 Christmas episode of All in the Family. The studio audience is roaring. Carol O'Connor sits in that famous worn-out chair in the bunker living room. Jean Stapleton stands beside him in her flowered apron. Rob Reiner argues with Archie about Vietnam. Sally Struthers laughs in the doorway. 4 people, 1 couch, 1 set of cameras, and a country watching from over 30 million homes. 53 years later, 3 of those 4 are gone. 1 was stabbed to death by his own son in a Brentwood mansion. 1 died of a literal broken heart. 6 years after his only son's last words to him on the phone. 1 sat in a funeral home refrigerator for 4 months while strangers fought over $50,000. 1 died alone in a Philadelphia hotel room, dressed and clutching the telephone, with help just minutes away. They were the faces of the most important sitcom in American television history. This is how every single one of them really died. Before we start, drop a comment and tell me where in the world you're watching from. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that button now, because what you're about to hear has never been put together in one place. Number 1, Rob Reiner. He played Michael Meathead Stivic, Archie Bunker's liberal son-in-law, from the very first episode in January 1971 through the 8th season in 1978. He appeared in 184 episodes. He won 2 Emmy Awards for the role. Rob Reiner was born March 6, 1947 in the Bronx, New York. His father was the legendary comedian Carl Reiner. Mel Brooks, Woody Allen, and Neil Simon used to come to the house. By age 18, Rob already knew Norman Lear personally, years before All in the Family even existed. After small parts on That Girl, Gomer Pyle, and Batman, he auditioned for Meathead in 1970. He got the role at 23 years old. After the show ended, he became one of the most successful directors of his generation. This is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men. 6 films, 6 classics, his final movie, Spinal Tap 2. The End Continues was released in September 2025. 3 months later, he was dead. On the night of December 13, 2025, Rob and his wife, Michaela Singer Reiner, attended a Christmas party hosted by Conan O'Brien. Their middle son, Nick, was with them. Nick was 32 years old, had a long history of mental health struggles, and had been under a conservatorship that ended in 2021. He was now living back with his parents in their Brentwood home. At the party, witnesses said Nick was freaking everyone out, acting crazy, kept asking people if they were famous. Rob pulled him aside and chastised him publicly. There was a loud argument. The family left early. The next afternoon, December 14, 2025, around 3 p.m., Rob's 27-year-old daughter, Romy, walked across the street from her own house to check on her parents. She found her father's body in the master bedroom. She fled, found a friend, and asked them to call 911. She did not yet know her mother was dead, too. Los Angeles police arrived at 3:40 p.m. Rob Reiner was pronounced dead at 3:45. Michaela was found at 3:46. The medical examiner ruled the cause of death as multiple sharp force injuries inflicted with a knife. The time between the attack and death was listed as minutes. Rob was 78. Michaela was 70. Nick Reiner was arrested that same day on 2 counts of first-degree murder. Surveillance footage from a gas station near USC, 15 miles from the family home, captured him hours after the killings, carrying a red backpack, calmly buying a drink. The tributes came from everywhere. Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi. Martin Scorsese wrote a personal essay in the New York Times on Christmas Day. Sally Struthers, his on-screen wife of 9 seasons, called the deaths beyond devastating. At the Oscars on March 15, 2026, Billy Crystal led a stage tribute joined by Meg Ryan, Demi Moore, Kathy Bates, Kiefer Sutherland, and over a dozen of Rob's collaborators. Rob and Michaela were cremated. Their children Jake and Romy released a statement. They weren't just our parents, they were our best friends. Nick Reiner remains in custody without bail. The case is ongoing. Meathead spent 9 seasons fighting Archie Bunker about the future. Rob Reiner spent 50 more years building one of the great Hollywood careers. And it all ended in a house he had paid for, at the hands of a son he had loved. Number 2, Vincent Gardenia. He played Frank Lorenzo, Archie Bunker's loud, hot-headed Italian neighbor across the street, in roughly 10 episodes between 1972 and 1973. Vincent was born Vincenzo Scognamiglio on January 7, 1920, in Naples, Italy. His father, Gennaro, was a star of the Italian language stage. His mother, Elisa, was a homemaker. When Vincent was 2, the family immigrated to Brooklyn. He made his stage debut at age 5, performing in his father's Italian language theater troupe in immigrant neighborhoods across New York. He never stopped acting for the next 67 years. He served in the U.S. Army during World War II. His first English-speaking stage role came at 35. Over the next 4 decades, he played more than 500 roles. He won the 1972 Tony Award for The Prisoner of Second Avenue. He earned 2 Academy Award nominations for Bang the Drum Slowly in 1973. In 1987, he won a 1990 Emmy for the HBO film Age-Old Friends. He was Mr. Mushnick in the 1986 Little Shop of Horrors. He never married, never had children. He lived in the same Bensonhurst, Brooklyn neighborhood his entire adult life. In December 1992, Gardenia was on a national tour of the off-Broadway comedy Breaking Legs. He had played the lead role of restaurant owner Lou Graciano since the New York opening in May 1991. He had performed it hundreds of times. The Philadelphia run opened on December 8, 1992, at the Forest Theater. That night, after the final preview performance, Gardenia had dinner with the play's director, John Tillinger, producer Elliot Martin, and several cast members at his hotel, the Benjamin Franklin Hotel in downtown Philadelphia. The producer Martin would later tell reporters he showed no signs of illness. It was just a jolly evening. Around 1 a.m. on December 9, Gardenia returned to his hotel room. The next morning, he didn't show up for a scheduled radio interview to promote the play. His press representative Irene Gandy and a cast member named Vince Viverito went to his room. They knocked. No answer. The hotel sent an engineer who unlocked the door. Vincent Gardenia was on the floor of his suite, fully dressed, clutching the telephone in his hand. He had suffered a massive heart attack. He had tried to call for help, but he died before the call could connect. He was 72 years old. That same evening, just hours after his body was found, the official opening night of Breaking Legs went on as scheduled. In keeping with theatrical tradition, the show was dedicated to his memory. His understudy, Harry Gardino, stepped into the role. A section of 16th Avenue in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, was renamed Vincent Gardenia Boulevard the following year. He was survived only by his younger brother, Ralph. Frank Lorenzo argued with Archie Bunker across a chain-link fence. Vincent Gardenia argued with a phone he never reached. Number 3, Sherman Hemsley. He played George Jefferson, Archie Bunker's loud-mouthed, dry-cleaning store-owning black neighbor from 1973 to 1975. When The Jeffersons spun off in January 1975, Hemsley took George with him. The spin-off ran 11 seasons and 253 episodes, making it one of the longest-running sitcoms in American history. Sherman was born February 1, 1938, in Philadelphia. His mother, Arsena, was a factory worker who raised him alone. He never knew his father. He dropped out of high school at 16, joined the U.S. Air Force, and served 4 years. After his discharge, he worked at the post office during the day and studied acting at night. He moved to New York in the mid-1960s and made his Broadway debut in the original 1970 production of Pearlie. Norman Lear saw him on Broadway and offered him the role of George Jefferson 3 years later. After The Jeffersons ended in 1985, Hemsley starred for 5 more seasons in the NBC sitcom Amen, playing the deacon of a Philadelphia church. He had a successful career until the end. He never married. He had no children. In May 2012, Hemsley was diagnosed with a large mass on his right lung. The cancer was advanced. On June 13, 2012, he signed a will leaving his entire estate, valued at approximately $50,000, to his longtime business partner and roommate Flora Enchinton Berna. He had lived with her in El Paso, Texas, for over a decade. She had been his manager for 20 years. On July 24, 2012, Sherman Hemsley died at his East El Paso home from complications of lung cancer. He was 74 years old. His cause of death was officially listed as superior vena cava syndrome, a condition where lung tumors block blood flow to the heart. He was not buried. His body was embalmed and placed in refrigeration at the San Jose Funeral Home in El Paso. A man named Richard Thornton from Philadelphia came forward claiming to be Hemsley's half-brother. He filed a civil lawsuit contesting the will, arguing it was not legally valid because Hemsley signed it only 6 weeks before his death after his cancer diagnosis. Enchinton said she had known Sherman for 20 years, and he had never once mentioned having a brother. Then a third claimant appeared. Reverend Michael George Wells, a minister at Arch Street United Methodist Church in Philadelphia, claimed his mother was Hemsley's sister. He said he wanted to intervene before the trial. He did not have the $10,000 he was told he would need to hire a lawyer. The probate court ordered Richard Thornton to undergo DNA testing. The trial was repeatedly delayed. Sherman Hemsley's body remained in the refrigerator. Weeks turned into months. Finally, on November 21, 2012, after a one-day bench trial in which the lawyer who drafted the will testified that he had personally witnessed Hemsley sign it, the Texas judge ruled the will valid. Flora Enchinton was confirmed as the sole heir. Sherman Hemsley was buried at Fort Bliss National Cemetery in El Paso with full military honors 4 months and 28 days after his death. George Jefferson moved on up to a deluxe apartment in the sky. Sherman Hemsley spent his final 119 days in a funeral home cooler in West Texas. Number 4, Mike Evans. He played Lionel Jefferson, son of George and Louise, the bright young man who appeared in the very first episode of All in the Family in January 1971. Michael Jonas Evans was born November 3, 1949, in Salisbury, North Carolina. His father, Theodore, was a dentist. His mother, Annie Sue, was a schoolteacher. The family moved to Los Angeles when he was a child. He graduated from Los Angeles High School and studied acting at Los Angeles City College. He was still in college when he auditioned for All in the Family in 1970. Showrunner Norman Lear had wanted Cleavon Little, the actor who would later star in Blazing Saddles, for the part. Director John Rich pushed for Evans instead. Lionel Jefferson would become one of the most groundbreaking black characters on American television, but Evans wanted more than acting. In 1974, while still playing Lionel, he co-created the sitcom Good Times with writer Eric Monty. It was one of the first American sitcoms to feature a primarily black cast. The character of Michael Evans on the show was named after him. He left The Jeffersons after its first season in 1975 to focus on writing. He returned to the show for its final seasons from 1979 to 1981. After that, he largely disappeared from Hollywood. He invested in real estate in Southern California. His final on-screen acting role was a 2000 guest appearance on Walker, Texas Ranger. In 2006, Evans was diagnosed with throat cancer. The disease progressed quickly. He left Los Angeles and moved back in with his mother in Twentinine Palms, a small high-desert town in San Bernardino County. On December 14, 2006, Mike Evans died at his mother's home. He was 57 years old. He was survived by 2 daughters, Carlena and Tammy. He had never married. The news did not break publicly for over a week. There was no major announcement, no televised tribute. The Associated Press only confirmed his death on December 22 after his niece Crystal Evans contacted reporters. It was a quiet ending for a man who had helped shape the most important black television comedies in American history. 3 iconic sitcoms. He acted in 2 of them and helped create the 3rd. And he died in a desert house his mother owned at 57 while the country was distracted by Christmas. Number 5, Isabelle Sanford. She played Louise Weezy Jefferson, George's patient and dignified wife, on All in the Family from 1971 to 1975, then on The Jeffersons for 11 seasons until 1985. In 1981, she became the first black actress in American television history to win the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. Eloise Gwendolyn Sanford was born August 29, 1917, in Harlem, New York City. Her father, James, was a chauffeur and ambulance driver. Her mother, Josephine, was a homemaker who supplemented welfare income with domestic work. Isabelle was the youngest of 7 children and the only one to survive infancy. 6 of her brothers and sisters died before she was born. Her father abandoned the family in 1920. Her mother moved them to the Bronx and raised Isabelle alone on welfare. Her mother was deeply religious and called acting the road to degradation. Isabelle disobeyed her. She snuck out of the house in high school to perform at the Apollo Theater on amateur nights. At 19, she won 3rd place in their amateur contest. After graduating, she joined the American Negro Theater in Harlem and made her professional stage debut in 1946. She married house painter William Sonny Richmond in 1945 and had 3 children. The marriage was troubled. In 1960, she withdrew her retirement savings, put her 3 kids on a Greyhound bus to Los Angeles and started over. Months later, her husband died. She worked as an IBM key punch operator by day and acted at night. Her Broadway debut came in James Baldwin's The Amen Corner in 1965. She was 47 years old. Director Stanley Kramer saw her in that play and cast her as the maid Tilly in the 1967 film Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, alongside Sidney Poitier, Spencer Tracy, and Katharine Hepburn. Norman Lear saw the film and cast her as Louise Jefferson 3 years later. After her historic 1981 Emmy win, Hollywood mostly stopped calling. She was reduced to guest spots on Living Single, Hangin' with Mr. Cooper, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Dream On. She made commercials for Old Navy and Denny's with Sherman Hemsley. A 1987 attempt at her own series, Isabelle's Honeymoon Hotel, was canceled almost immediately. In September 2003, Isabelle Sanford underwent preventive surgery on her carotid artery. Her health deteriorated rapidly over the following months. On January 15, 2004, just months before her death, she finally received her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at 7080 Hollywood Boulevard. She said, "Here with stars in my eyes, something that I dreamed about when I was 9 years old." She was hospitalized at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles on July 4, 2004. She died there 5 days later, on July 9, of cardiopulmonary arrest and heart disease. She was 86 years old. She was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. Louise Jefferson lived in a deluxe apartment in the sky. Isabelle Sanford lived in a Hollywood that gave her one Emmy and then forgot her name. Number 6, Jean Stapleton. She played Edith Bunker, the gentle, high-voiced, endlessly patient wife of Archie. She appeared in 205 of the show's episodes from 1971 to 1979. She won 3 Emmys and 2 Golden Globes. She invented Edith's iconic warbling voice during rehearsals. She was 47 years old when the series premiered. She was born Jean Murray on January 19, 1923, in Manhattan. Her father, Joseph, was a billboard advertising salesman. Her mother, Marie, was an opera singer. Her older brother, Jack, was a stage actor who inspired her to pursue acting. She graduated from Wadley High School in 1939 and worked as a secretary while studying theater at night. She took her mother's maiden name as her stage name. Her Broadway career included Damn Yankeesy in 1955, Bells Are Ringing in 1956, and Funny Girl in 1964. Norman Lear cast her as Edith in 1968 for the original pilot, 3 years before the show aired. By the time it premiered in 1971, she was already 47 and largely unknown. She walked away from the role in 1979. When Archie Bunker's Place began in the fall of 1980, Stapleton agreed to appear in only 5 episodes to help with the transition. Then she insisted on leaving permanently. She had told the Associated Press, "My identity as an actress is in jeopardy if I invested my entire career in Edith Bunker." The show's writers took her decision seriously. In the second season premiere of Archie Bunker's Place in the fall of 1980, the character of Edith Bunker died off-screen of a stroke. Carol O'Connor, playing Archie alone in their bedroom, picking up one of her slippers, delivered a performance so raw that the episode is still considered one of the most devastating moments in American sitcom history. He reportedly broke down during the filming. After Edith, Stapleton turned down the lead role in Murder, She Wrote, which went to Angela Lansbury and ran for 12 seasons. She turned down millions in syndication. She said she wanted artistic freedom. She spent her later career playing Eleanor Roosevelt on stage and screen and performing in regional theater. Her husband, William Putch, a theater director, died of a heart attack in 1983 at age 60. She never remarried. On May 31, 2013, Jean Stapleton died at her apartment in Manhattan of natural causes. She was 90 years old. Her children, Pamela and John, were with her. She passed peacefully. The marquee lights on Broadway were dimmed for 2 minutes on June 5, 2013, at 8 p.m. in her honor. Norman Lear said, "No one gave more profound how to be a human being lessons than Jean Stapleton. Goodbye, Edith, darling." Edith Bunker was killed off by a stroke in 1980. Jean Stapleton outlived her by 33 years and died on her own terms. Number 7, Carol O'Connor. He was Archie Bunker, the loud, prejudiced, working-class patriarch in the worn leather chair. He won 4 Emmy Awards for the role. He carried the most controversial sitcom in American television history on his back for 9 seasons and 205 episodes. Norman Lear's first choice for the role had been Mickey Rooney, who turned it down because he thought the show was too controversial and would fail. Carol was born August 2, 1924, in Manhattan. His father, Edward, was a lawyer. His mother, Elise, was a teacher. He had 2 younger brothers, Hugh and Robert. Hugh became a doctor. In 1961, Hugh died in a motorcycle crash. Carol attended Wake Forest University, then transferred to the University of Montana, then moved to Ireland, and graduated from University College Dublin in 1952. He started his career on the Irish stage at the Gate Theatre in Dublin. He returned to New York in 1954 and spent the next 17 years grinding through stage work, Gunsmoke, Bonanza, The Fugitive, and The Wild Wild West before All in the Family changed his life at age 46. In 1962, while filming Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton in Rome, Carol and his wife Nancy adopted a 6-day-old baby boy. They named him Hugh after Carol's dead brother. From the day he was born, the second Hugh was a replacement for a lost life. When Hugh O'Connor was 16, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. He beat the cancer through chemotherapy and 2 surgeries. But during treatment, he became dependent on painkillers. Later, he moved to harder drugs, cocaine. For the next 16 years, Hugh battled addiction. He went through multiple rehab programs. He never beat it. Carol never gave up on him. He gave Hugh a job as a courier on the All in the Family set. Later, he cast him as Officer Lonnie Jameson on his All in the Family drama In the Heat of the Night. They worked together for 7 seasons. March 28, 1995 was Hugh's 3rd wedding anniversary. He had married a wardrobe assistant named Angela Clayton in 1992. They had a 2-year-old son, Sean Carroll O'Connor. That afternoon, Angela called Hugh to check on him. He was hallucinating. He told her he believed their phone conversation was being broadcast over the entire neighborhood. After they hung up, he called his father. Carol picked up. Hugh told him he could not face another rehab program. He told him he had guns. His last words to his father were, "So long, Pop." Carol immediately called the Los Angeles Police Department. He told them his son was armed and suicidal. Lapp dispatched a SWAT team and a crisis negotiator to Hugh's home in Pacific Palisades. When officers arrived, Hugh refused to come out. Inside the house, alone, he put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger. Hugh O'Connor was 32 years old. Carol never recovered. Within hours of his son's death, he stood in front of news cameras and named the man he held responsible. Harry Thomas Persigian, a songwriter who had been supplying his son with cocaine. He called Persigian a partner in murder, not an accessory. A partner in murder on Diane Sawyer's Primetime Live. Persigian was arrested the next day and ultimately served 1 year in jail for cocaine possession. He then sued Carol for $10 million for slander. Carol won the trial. Carol then spent the next 2 years lobbying the California legislature to pass the Drug Dealer Liability Act, allowing families to sue drug dealers for civil damages. It passed in 1997. The law has now been adopted in 16 states. In several states, it is known as the Hugh O'Connor Memorial Act. But the grief was not metaphorical. It was biochemical. Carol had undergone coronary bypass surgery in 1989. He was a type 2 diabetic. After Hugh's death, his health collapsed. Doctors now have a medical term for what happens to people in his condition. Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, broken heart syndrome. Acute emotional stress releases stress hormones that physically weaken the heart muscle. Chronic grief elevates cortisol, causes inflammation, increases blood clotting. It is real. It is measurable. It kills. On June 21, 2001, 6 years and 12 weeks after Hugh's suicide, Carol O'Connor died of a heart attack at St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica, California. He was 76 years old. The official cause was complications from diabetes and coronary disease. His wife, Nancy, was at his bedside. His funeral was held at St. Paul the Apostle Church in Westwood. Rob Reiner, Sally Struthers, Jean Stapleton, and Carol's close friend, Martin Sheen, who had survived his own son Charlie's addiction, attended together. 24 years later, Rob Reiner would also be murdered. Archie Bunker was a fictional bigot in a worn chair in Queens. Carol O'Connor was a real father who buried a real son and then died of the wound it left. 3 of the 4 main cast members of All in the Family are now gone. Carol O'Connor in 2001 at 76. Jean Stapleton in 2013 at 90. Rob Reiner in 2025 at 78. Only Sally Struthers, who played Gloria, remains. She is 78 years old and still working. Of everyone we've talked about today, 1 was murdered by his own son. 1 died alone in a hotel room. 1 sat in a refrigerator for 4 months. 1 died in a desert town no one was watching. 1 was finally given a Hollywood star months before she died. 1 was given a peaceful goodbye after walking away from the role that made her famous. And 1 died of a broken heart that medical science can now actually measure. All in the Family premiered on January 12, 1971. For 9 seasons, it was the most watched, most debated, most groundbreaking sitcom in American television. It told the truth about working-class people when nobody else would. And every person who made that truth possible carried their own truth off the stage when the camera stopped. That is what this video is. Not gossip. Not nostalgia. Just the record. Drop a comment and tell me which one of these deaths surprised you the most. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button because the next one is already in the works.